Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Ted Ings, and it is a great pleasure to welcome the team from the Walser Automotive Group and welcome back a familiar face to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It's Ashley Cavazos. Ashley, welcome back to the event.
Hi, Ted. It's good to be back.
Great to see you. And, it's been a while since you've been on the show, but I know that you've assembled some big firepower from what I see here at the Walser Automotive Group. And Ashley, I love the topic of the panel. It's not like the other guys.
That's right, Ted. We are not like the other guys at Walser Automotive Group.
Well, I know our audience is really keen and interested in that, and we want to learn more. So with that, Ashley, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll let you introduce everybody and let you get things going.
All right, sounds good. I'll take it away. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm Ashley Cavazos. I'm Director of Digital Performance at Walser Automotive Group, and we're excited to bring Not Like the Other Guys, how dealers can start thinking more like leaders, a program really inspired by our CHRO, who we have on the call with us, Sherry Schultz. We are also glad to have some other power hitters in our group. We have Dana Landgrebe, who is our Senior Manager of Corporate Communications, and an ERG sponsor in our group, Angie Kruger, Director of Learning and Development, Jennifer Parsons, our Director of Finance, and Greg Davis, who is our VP General Manager at Walser Bloomington Toyota. So one of the things we all really love about working for Walser is that words like core values and servant leadership are more than just a poster on a wall. And it was really one of the things that I was very aware of from my first conversations with our CEO, Andrew Walser. Yes, we sell cars and we service cars at Walser, but we're also in the people business. We know how fast moving this industry is, and like digital isn't going anywhere, neither are our people. They are the new currency. We cannot evolve without them. So with that said, I'm excited to bring this group together and talk a little bit and bring you inside into what makes us who we are. So I'd really love to start with Sherry. Sherry, you have been a driving force for us at the group, and so honored to have you here. Thank you for taking time out of the schedule. I know how busy you are. You've been with us for a little over 3+ years. You've accomplished so much. From helping to initiate our employee resource groups like Women of Walser and Drive with Pride to introducing the values exercise. For someone who is looking to bring change to their dealership, where would you say would be some good places for them to start?
Yeah, Ashley, I love your comment about people are the currency. I think people are the only currency, actually. I live by it. My career has chosen me wisely. I've been here for 4 years, and it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to work with the team. So for me, I think I often get asked, hey, what's your diversity strategy? What's your approach to building inclusivity on a show floor or in any company? And I think you have to have a people strategy first, right? And so you can't just aspire to be an inclusive organization until you really understand at the center of your proposition what people mean to you. And I think where organizations can stumble sometimes is when they put a top-down approach on the value proposition versus asking the people what matters to them first. And I think from a values exercise, what we love to do, and I know all of you on this particular panel have been part of this firsthand, we like to ask our employees what they value, what matters most to them. And so when you're designing a program or you're thinking about, gosh, am I going to do something that adds value to employees? Until you ask, I think you're guessing. You're looking at what everybody else does and you say, okay, I'll do something like that, maybe customize it a little bit. But for us, we've probably asked 500, 600, 700 different roundtable panel group discussions that we've had across our organization. And when we ask, and I'll share the Walser Automotive Group values, it's always about family, right? And so when you try to make a difference, asking what they value is the first step. We learned family is the most important thing to our employees. So everything that we're going to talk about is what is spun out of that. What have we done to actually bring value to our employees based on what matters most to them? And so from a family perspective, you then look and say, gosh, how can I customize my offering and bring value-driven benefits that speak to the needs of family? And so that's the start. And I think it's so intuitive and quite simple. Ask what people want.
I love that. You talk about bringing your whole self to work. as well, right? And we have our ERGs, we have Women of Walser and Drive with Pride. We also have Mosaic, an employee resource, really looking at our people, and we see you, we hear you, we are with you. Angie and Dana, you work so closely with Sherry. You're very active in our ERGs. Angie, you're the president of Women of Walser. Dana, you sponsor from the top down and help drive this force forward for us. Starting an ERG may not be the easiest thing for somebody to do. They may not even have the resources to do it. What are some of the opportunities you see where dealers can start getting that conversation going? And what are the benefits you're seeing yourself across the groups?
Well, I'll jump right in and just completely echo what Sherry said, which is I think the first step to starting an ERG is really understanding what your employees want. From a personal perspective, from a core values perspective, I mean, that can be so monumental in driving the direction of your employee experience. And when Sherry came to Walser and said, hey, another great way to have this conversation is to look at what the marketplace is doing, and to look like your marketplace, and getting the ball rolling by broaching that conversation or couching it with senior leaders to say, listen, it's not only the right thing to do, but there's an incredible, compelling business case when you look at looking like the people that are walking through your front doors. It's revenue generating to think about how to match the marketplace and then formalize the conversations from there. I think once we had those conversations, we started to look at things that could really develop, for example, the women and Women of Walser, our professional development, our personal development, our education, and our advocacy of our employees from there.
So, yeah, Ash, before we move on to, I think the most important thing about when you ask your employees what they value, when you ask, you do have to do something, right? And so I think the activation of asking came forward in resource groups because we had folks that said, hey, I want to look like community and I want to be supported here. And so the things that Angie will talk about is what came out of people saying, hey, we want a presence here from a female, both from a consumer perspective, but also from an employee perspective. So how are we going to answer that? Right? It's we all know the stats on title ownership and decision making from a purchasing perspective, but you can't do something for the customer that you haven't done inside for your own people first. And I think that's where the genuine nature of what we've done really matters. And so when you think about family and people suggesting that, yes, we want the diversity on our show floor. So what? So what do you do? So did we have maternity and paternity leave when we began working together? We didn't. And now we do. Did we have fertility and adoption assistance? We didn't. And now we do. Did we have bring your child to work day and, snow day support where you could actually bring your kid if you're really stuck on a day? No, we didn't. But now we do. And so to Dana's point, if you're going to ask and you're going to try to activate for the consumer, best practice for me is make sure you do it inside your own house first before you start giving it to the customer. So Angie's done a really great job with the Women of Walser, and I know she can put more meat on the bones for this for us.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. I would say that getting the group started, if that's what you're wondering how to do, is just get some people together and start talking about it. What do you want to accomplish is the first step. It's not enough to just get a group together to talk about how difficult it is to be a woman in this organization or to complain about things. Yes, you may have those moments where people need to get past maybe how they've been treated in the past, but it's then how are you going to make it a better place? How are you going to recruit more females into the industry or more LGBTQ plus individuals? How are you going to support the ones that are already there? Sherry mentioned a lot of the things that we do already to now try and support our women or anyone in the organization with paternity, maternity leave. Or at one of our Women of Walser events, it came up that women in particular have a hard time on snow days. We all know how challenging snow days are in this industry. You got to get there early, you got to help clear the lot, get all the snow off the cars, but that's also the time in Minnesota where school shut down and now I have no daycare and I have a kid at home. So how can we help support our employees, which is why we decided if you're really in a bind, bring your kids. We'll find a way to entertain them, have them in the back. And that came out of one of our Women of Walser events where we had a bunch of women together talking about some of the things that would help make the environment better for more women, better for more people to come and bring their whole self to work every day, including your kid in some cases. So the biggest thing with trying to get these ERGs together, I would say, is just get people's input, get support from your general managers. Greg has been a huge advocate for us, attending events, just listening, hearing what people are saying. It's support, but it's also education, because there were things that come up out of these groups that we didn't realize were happening, or that our general managers may not have always seen or heard, especially when there may only be 2 or 3 women in a particular location. So listen, support, try and understand. And the first step is really just get people together and get started. You don't have to have a huge budget. You don't have to have all these glamorous things. It just starts with a couple people wanting to make change.
I'm finding a theme here. Ask your people, right? Is that really what it kind of comes down to? Which, now I'm going to kind of turn things over to Greg. As a general manager, you live this life every day in your store. You've been working in automotive for 30 plus years. You've seen firsthand the roller coaster of change in the industry over the years. You're also at the center of the Twin Cities with a diverse team in the middle of a metro. You have made what some might think are small changes, but they have made a large impact to the people. I think one of the things dealers may not realize is when you invest in your people, you see an increase in performance as well. What are some of the changes you've made, and what is the impact you've seen in your store?
Thank you for having me on this roundtable, first of all, Ashley. And I would say, to echo what Sherry says about the employee experience, the guest experience will never exceed that. And she's brought that to the forefront with her leadership and a lot of the folks on this call, that how do you lean into, how do you reach out to your employees, regardless of what their background is, what their experience level is, what is it that matters to them? What are their values? How do you connect with them? Because once you find that and you tap into that potential, they become a different employee altogether, which I've seen in this store. And it's really been, heartfelt for me, somebody who has been in this industry for so long, and we've done so many things so well, but I never felt like we really tapped our potential from an employee perspective, or just the potential to be who they want to be and go where they want to go, map out their future. I think we've gotten really good with doing more one-on-one type conversations with our folks to understand, what does my future look like? People don't generally leave companies, they leave a boss. And so how do we get our leaders to actually lead by getting to know what it is that's inside of our employees that they want out of this career? How do they balance the outside work with the inside work? I think we have 2 families. We have our family that we work with, and then we have our family that we go home to provide for, and they both matter. So I think at this store in particular, some of the things that we've done, we have a pretty diverse show floor and a diverse shop and service department. How do we connect with those different communities that maybe haven't always been supported like they should be? And I think for someone like myself that maybe doesn't always see things, I tend to not see color, but that's a problem in and of itself, because you don't know what somebody else's perspective is and what they may have gone through to get here. So how do we make things easier for them, whether it's trying to grow into a leadership role or just get a shot somewhere within the organization? So we have to work extra harder with those communities that are challenged, that are marginalized. And I think Sherry and the team has brought that to the forefront. And it goes to a bigger question about just your people in general. Do you know them? And I've worked really hard to change who I am. I'm driven to succeed and to win. I love a challenge. And sometimes I can lose focus of the people along the way. And Sherry has really helped me to understand that, hey, if you really want to get to that next level, it's through your people. And so thank you for that, Sherry. And thank you for all you've done to help this company grow in ways that we weren't even sure we could grow. And we're seeing it in better KPIs in nearly every department and dealership. And it's a people-focused business, as you alluded to, Ashley. How do we maximize things there? How do we make people feel comfortable when they come to work, whether it's their children, whether it's starting a family through maternity and paid paternity leave? Those things, they're huge things that, I wish I would have had when I was younger. But
Right.
Now I'm so excited for my employees that they have the chance to bond with their children and then come back to a company that cares about their their whole self, as you said earlier. So I'm just so excited to be a part of a team that has the vision that we have to grow in ways that aren't just about how many rooftops can we have as a dealer group. But when we do that, if we do get the chance and the opportunity to grow with our manufacturer partners or by buying another rooftop, how do we find leaders to run these stores in the way that we believe they should be run to create that sense of community at the store level. So one of the things we did that's kind of unique, I think that's fun, is we have a big Somali population here. And I would see them throughout the dealership praying throughout the day. It's very important. They're very disciplined in their prayer. And we wanted to create a special spot to do that. And in our existing dealership, we didn't really have a place. They would find quiet areas, the elevator room, an office that wasn't being occupied. So we dedicated an office downstairs for people that want to prayer of all faiths, primarily used by a lot of our folks that are of Muslim faith, but anyone can use it. So it's very inclusive, and it kind of rings true to what we're trying to create in our environment. We've done things that cater to people's lifestyle in terms of their food choices. I know Sherry brought in some healthy food choices to our dealerships. It's called Avenue C, which it's tough to eat on the go when you're in a fast-paced environment, whether you're a technician or whether you're a salesperson. So how do we get them recharged and refueled with the right cup of coffee, the right healthy food choices, things like that, feeding them on Saturdays. So I think there's a lot of things we've considered, from what you mentioned earlier, Ashley, about snow days, which a lot of people may not know about snow days if you live south of where we are in the northern section of the country. It's a big event to move every car, key every car, plow the lot. I'm sure you have your own challenges in parts of the country that aren't related to snow, but we work hard, and it's fun to see people get smile on their faces and have us problem solve with them to make things easier, whether it's time away, whether it's more effective ways to work when you're here. One of the things that we may get to later that I'll just touch on is even the way we work. We try to create small work groups where we have a defined boss that we know who's responsible for my success and what team am I a part of. And we try to work in areas, whether it's in the show floor or the shop, in those teams, those smaller groups, to provide for coaching and development of our employees so they can get ongoing hands-on, I do, we do type servant leadership versus, hey, just go do this and I'll be over here, or come back and see me. So we're really active in trying to coach people in a way that they want to be coached. So those are some things that we do at the store level. I know I've talked a lot here. I'll turn it back over to you, Ashley, but just really excited about our people driven strategy, which really comes from Sherry more than anybody. I think maybe a step further, Andrew found Sherry, and she has brought so much to this company from a people first strategy.
So Ash, before I have to call Greg out a little bit and kind of credit him publicly, because one of the things that Dana and I talk about a lot, and we've said this at other conferences, particularly, whether it's Women in Automotive or some of the other places that we've spoken, that we've been looking at demographic data for decades, right? And so the head won't change until the heart does. And so what I've witnessed firsthand with Greg is, his ability to lead people, his ability to father his amazing daughter, his connection to people. As you said it at the onset, Greg, it's really about becoming a better person. And what Andrew said to me during my recruiting process was, I'm not looking to make great salespeople, I'm looking to make great people. And that for me was like, sign up for that all day long. And so I think when you are looking to create a general manager that's as kind of empowered and progressive as Greg Davis is, you really have to look at the person and where he is or she is in their own development, right? And we have a saying here at Walser, I know myself, I love myself, and then I love my job. And you have to kind of be willing to be vulnerable and put yourself out there a bit. And I think from the moment Greg began to embrace, his whole self and started leading from the front, not just with the head, but the heart as well, I watched his business double and now almost triple relative to what has happened. And we can talk about all the tailwind that we've had in the industry from an inventory perspective. His turnover is down, his diversity and his community connection is up. His people are engaged and happy, and they're going the extra mile, for the company. And that just, that comes from bringing your whole self. So kudos to Greg and the vulnerability that he brings to the picture. The other thing that he's really not giving himself credit for, is the notion of the prayer room also spawned a broader discussion called faith and understanding, which allowed people to take on things that were very, to some degree, blind spots for individuals, and say, hey, I don't know what your faith really means. And, if we're going to judge not, we really have to be able to ask questions. And to Angie's earlier point, the education that I watched Greg lead when he brought 10 people into a room to talk about faith and how do we best respect our Somali customers and employees. Oh, by the way, now we have a portion of our workforce that caters and speaks effectively to that population, and the customer is as connected to us as the employee is because of the work that he did. So, I can't say enough great things about you, Greg, and what you've come through. So, couldn't be prouder to support you and the team as well.
Yes, couldn't agree more, Sherry. And I mean, Greg, you gave up your office. I mean, what general manager is going to give up their office? And you did that for your team. And it may seem like something small, but it makes a big difference to your people. So I appreciate you you talking on that for us. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to Jennifer Parsons. Jen, you're the director of finance. You started in automotive about 8 years ago as a salesperson but you're not our typical automotive background person. You have your MBA. You are just typically not the person we expect to see in the industry. So for dealers who are watching and wanting to attract top talent like yourself, and I think we can all speak to this, as Sherry said, when we spoke to Andrew, we felt something different. But what are some of the things that drew you to automotive? And what should dealers be doing to attract strong talent like yourself who normally wouldn't think about a career in automotive?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, for me, automotive was kind of an accident. I did not set out to, go to graduate school and do all these things to, go into the car business. And I remember when I first took the interview with the group I started with at the time, my dad's like, oh, you don't want to sell cars, do you? Like, no, I'm going to get into finance. I'm going to do this for a couple of years, and then I'm going to go work for the banks. Like that, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew like that's what people do that get an MBA, they go to grad school, like you go work for the banks. Don't know what that means, but I'm going to do it. And then I got attracted to the industry because there's this immense amount of opportunity in this industry that I think a lot of people miss out on because they just look past automotive altogether, which probably would have been me if I hadn't seen. I remember it was a LinkedIn job post for a finance development position. And, I had been hitting all these dead ends and just where did I want to go next with my career? And I stumbled across an amazing leadership team and a huge mentor that is still in my life today. I'm really fortunate to say, and, able to find that path. And what I realized very quickly in automotive is I don't know another industry that has this much opportunity for anybody that's willing to really, do the work and put in the time and the effort. So I would say attracting kind of your not typical car people is as easy as putting together, that plan and that attraction to, hey, I realize you were thinking you were going to end up in this field, but there's actually more opportunity here, and here's why, and here's what we can give you in exchange. And I can't imagine being anywhere else. So
sounds like a career path, right, Sherry?
She is a spokesperson extraordinaire. I think Jen she is inspirational to me on a lot of fronts. She takes on, I think, very heady projects that are so critical because if we, make an adjustment one way or the other, our entire company's PVR and our focus on finance products can really change. But ultimately, we look at things through the consumer's lens in many cases, and we try to simplify things. And one of the things that Jen and I have talked about, which is an example of inherently how diversity and inclusion is played out in core work processes, as I think, many people who watch us know, we are a one-person best price dealership, so we're non-negotiating, if you will, and that just isn't on price, right? That's on rate, that's on the trade, and so when you think about the ability to knock out any kind of bias in the financing products or any of those things, Jen's design and the things that she's doing that sort of speak to the consumer regardless of any measurable difference. There's something to be said about how inclusive that is, regardless of skin color or gender or anything, when you have a non-negotiated rate. And I know Jen has worked really hard with our banks to ensure that the process is smooth and simple and very transparent. And I can't say that there's a lot of dealership groups that take diversity and inclusion right to the core of their financing process and their pricing strategies the way we do. So kudos to Jen and the way she's thinking about those processes as well.
Most definitely. Sherry, Angie, Greg, Jen, I mean, basically the whole team on this call. One of my big initiatives is we worked really closely on this together was transitioning, and Sherry touched on this. We're one point of contact automotive group, but we transitioned from the traditional dealership setup of having the Genius Bar or the desk, moving into small teams of 4 to 6 sales associates, one sales manager. It's a completely different setup than what dealers are used to, but the results have been pretty incredible, and they're improving daily, from finance to sales to employee engagement and satisfaction. What are the benefits that y'all are seeing from the setup? What have you heard? What feedback could you give? Because I think most dealers, when they hear this, they're like, you did what? Like, you moved the big desk out of the way, your managers are on the show floor now?
I'd like to speak to this. I'm sure all of you have, thoughts on it. But one thing I want to add, just as somebody that came from a traditional F&I office where I was in the back and I was that person that was coming to do the financing, to see I think of it from a consumer standpoint. The customer walks in, I'm sitting at a salesperson's desk, and there's no, let me go talk to my manager, or let me grab the finance person. Let me see what your rate's going to be. Like, there's not this secretive kind of, who knows what we want to call it, but there's not this like secret happening in the background. And Greg, I'm sure you see it every day, but just that transparency and that comfort level that a customer sees and feels when they're in one of our stores, as somebody that was the person behind the closed door for a long time, is huge.
Yeah, I would agree, Jen. It's definitely a big change in the way we do things by having that transparency, the one price, the one person throughout, from lead handling all the way through the finance. We used to have what we call Genius Bars. Our owner would call them something different. He'd call them a dummy bar. But, ultimately, we want you as close to the action as possible as a leader. And I think people that lead from in front are going to engage their employees more. So the way we're set up, again, I mentioned a little earlier, is we have roundtables, which is really effective with communicating with our customers. But even our employees sit at roundtables together, and they have their daily huddles where they start their day and they review their KPIs, things they're working on. Where am I tracking for units and finance? And then, when there is a question or there's some involvement needed by a manager during the sales process, you're right there. You've probably met the guest early and often, as we say, maybe with a flyby or a TO that was real introductory, introducing yourself as a leader that's available to help at any point in the process. So I think having people away from the desk, instead of pointing and telling, we are engaged with our people. I think that's made a lot of difference in where we've gone as a company. So couldn't be happier with how we're laid out functionally.
Yeah, managers are sending, go ahead.
Sorry, Ash. I think customers also appreciate, that we are there for our people. It's an interesting thing because whenever I get great service in any commodity or any place, I always wonder, are the employees treated and supported as well as I'm feeling, right? And I don't like when it's really perfect for me as a customer, but maybe behind the scenes I'm not getting the type of support, from an employee perspective. I think that it kind of demystifies that for the customer. And when they see our employees being treated well, I think they respect that a lot, because then it's really authentic and genuine and not some kind of show that we're putting on for people. So that's a plus to me as well.
You talk about speaking of coaches don't lead from an office or a spot way off of the game floor. They are right there in the action. And that was the point of making this change, is so that our managers were right there seeing, hearing what was going on. And how are you really going to lead your people unless you're actually right there with them, getting to know them? So that was a huge benefit that we got from it. They're coaching from the action.
Coaching during the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just like that, our time has come up, but I wanted to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you, Ted. If you'd like to learn more about this program that we're talking about, the Sherry's created Dealers into Leaders, we do have the link running across on the bottom of your screen there. Definitely check it out. And just Thank you all, everybody. Thank you to the audience for joining us, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
And Ashley, I want to thank you for putting this all together. Sherry, I had heard a whole lot about Walser Automotive Group, but I've learned a lot today. And just listening to what Jennifer shared with us and Greg with a lot of the changes that you've made and why you've made them, and how, Greg, everything speaks, right? All these little things speak volumes. And Angie, the stories that you've shared are really from the heart. And I'm actually very moved by a lot of the things that I've heard. And Dana, you've done a great job in telling that message and getting that word out. And it's really clear, Ashley, that Walser Automotive Group is not like the other guys, not at all. So, on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, I want to thank all of you for being here today. Great work. Congratulations on all the success that you're having. I can see why you're having it, and keep up the great work, and don't ever stop. So, Ashley and the team here at Walser Automotive Group here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.